Hello, this is New Surpat Jim, and we're talking to our old friend Fred Noland in Dolan Springs. He has a long history of working in in Hollywood, in the film industry, and we'll start with Fred and have him tell you a little bit about himself and some stories maybe. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, my name is Fred Noland. I worked for the local 80 Grips Union for 20-some years and had a home lot at Paramount. And when you work in the studios, whatever studio you end up working the most at becomes your home lot. Not that you don't work at all the other lots, but that became my home lot, and had a lot of great experiences through a lot of different shows. And then I studied to be a dolly grip, which is any time that the camera is moving, it's something that you're in charge of, to know what machines or how to set up the shot so that everything's smooth. Kind of like dancing with whoever the actor is that you're working with. They're kind of taught at acting school to rise their shoulders while they're talking if they're sitting down. So that gives you a clue to raise the camera up. You have hydraulics on a dolly. Then they have to shrug their shoulders just before they sit down, so that it makes it easier for you on the language they're talking and the timing of knowing when to bring the camera down. And I had quite a few different experiences with different actors that were really a lot of fun. Worked with John Candy on Spaceballs and Who's Harry Crumb, and we had one incident that was especially fun. We're sitting around and waiting for him to come on the set. Somebody comes walking on the set, and we looked over, and there was three of us standing there, an electrician, myself, and a friend of mine, he's another grip. And we looked and went, wow, that is the ugliest looking woman ever seen in my life. And he overheard us. He kind of walked by us. He'd always go over to to where we had the food, craft service. And he was over there and he was eating, and he calmly walked over to us and says, oh, so makeup did the hair, makeup did a really good job. We looked at him and went, oh my gosh, that's John. Well, that's what the show was about all the different disguises. This was so good, we didn't even know it. And he says, now you think this looks funny. Let me show you something really funny. And he lifted up his dress, and he was a very heavy man. He had 3 rolls of fat on his body. So he swung his boobs one way, his middle the other way, and the one below that another way, and he had 3 rolls of fat going 3 different which ways. and it was so funny, the 3 of us were cracking up, and then as he pulled his dress back down, he looked at us and said, well, you think that's funny? He goes, I laugh every day all the way to the bank thinking about what I'm going to do to keep me in shape like I am. And he was very shapely. So that was a very, very fun moment. I had quite a few very fun moments. And a lot of people that work on at studios ride bicycles. During my time, that's how we got around from one stage to another. And I had a really nice beach bicycle, and I'd ride around. And sometimes, of course, you're working late nights till early mornings. And I'd be leaving when nobody was on the lot and riding through the hallways of all the different stages. And there's plaques everywhere from the different shows. Me, I always loved Bonanza, some of those older shows. And I got to work on all those stages. The history that was there when you're up at the very top of the stage, because everything's rigged from the top. And while you're up there, written in chalk are all the guys that worked up there from the early 1900s up through the time that I was up there. Yeah. I mean, you see up there stuff 1911, 1925. Whenever the beginning of the studios were at Paramount, there were guys working up there, and they wrote their names in chalk. Sometimes they'd write the show. And it was very cool because I was able to change up. Everybody had it in white because dust doesn't settle on chalk up on the wood. So myself, I went and got a really bright pink chalk. and went up and wrote my name in pink so that everybody would know that I was a little different from everybody else. And I have my name up in probably every studio in Hollywood, from one into California up into Canada, all the spots that we had places to work and locations that we worked on. It was really a lot of fun. I'd have to say that of all the things I did in my life, that was probably the best. But with everything that's fun, there's a drawback, and the drawback was I really didn't have a lot of time for my family. I was able to provide what they needed, but I wasn't there to be a part of all their growing up when you're on location and gone all the time. So for every good thing, there's always a drawback. And I'd have to say, though, all in all, it was very exciting. I had a really good time. I have a lot more stories of different people I worked with. Kathy, what was his name that I worked with on Diagnosed Murder?
Dick Van Dyke.
I worked with Dick Van Dyke for 5 years on Murder, She Wrote. Isn't that what that was?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's something called Murder, She Wrote.
No, that was Angela.
Diagnosis
Diagnosis Murder.
Murder. That was Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, that was Angela Lansbury. Diagnosis Murder was so great. Him and his son Brian, I had a chance to go to their houses, help set up Halloween for them. So that Barry Van Dyke's his son, got to go to their house and set up. They really loved Halloween. And he was so funny because he loved to sing. He'd do that Barbara Quartet. And for the crew, he would have, when we come walking in the morning tired from the night before, there would be all these guys sitting there with banjos and guitars, and they'd start playing for us while we were setting up. And he'd be over there with a quartet singing to us. He was one of the most wonderful people to work for. He was thoughtful. He was courteous. He knew his lines. He was very professional, and just a real joy to spend time with. So, there's all the different actors you work with because they're all just people. Some, of course, stand out in your mind more than others. And I have a few others that were really stand out that were very, very cool. Some of them I got to work with. Who was that at the very beginning, Kathy, that I worked with on that show? What was his name? Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. Anyway, it was a very big moonlighting.
And you did a lot with Michael Jackson.
With him, and I worked with Michael Jackson. He was very odd. But, yeah, Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis were at the very beginning, and they were, so nice to everybody in the first season. Then, as things progressed, well, at the beginning he knew our names, got us donuts, would sit and ask how our weekends were. Then it was he didn't bring the donuts anymore, and when he made a little more money, when he finally was making a lot of money, he didn't remember our names, didn't know who we were, started fighting with Sybil. Things weren't good on the set and ended the show. So it was kind of a bummer to see him start out with a really good attitude and a really a team player to at the end being singled out as I am the number one guy around here, and just became, somewhat unbearable. But sometimes that comes with the money. You have any questions you want to ask me?
Yeah, didn't you tell me one time you worked for Janis Joplin as lighting or something? You were roadie?
That was back in the old days, and worked with a few people. But the best times were working at the studios. The music kind of came and went, and during the 60s there was not a lot to remember, because if you remember the 60s, you weren't there.
I agree.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah. No, that's great. Can we call you again sometime and get some more
you could
out of you?
You call me again, and Kathy's here, and I'll have Kathy bring up a couple of more stories I can tell you. I'm glad I was here to talk with you. Of course, we're right in the middle of doing some water hauls. So
Sure.
I got to get back to work. I'm glad I had the time to talk with you, Victor, because you are one of the most interesting people Kathy and I know.
Likewise, I'm sure.
Well, thank you, Victor.
Okay, Fred, thanks a lot.
You have a great day.
Bye.
Bye now.